Hi, thank you all so much for joining us today for the Earth Day webinar. I'm Laura DePalmer from Renew International, and we're going to talk a lot about Earth Day today and its theme this year, which is Invest in Our Planet, as well as Laudato Si and how its guidelines can help us invest in our planet. As we move through the discussion, please feel free to put any questions or comments into the Q&A box. We'll be happy to talk about them. I'll be checking it during the whole meeting. So if you have any questions for Sister Honora, or if you have any technical difficulties, I will be more than happy to help you however I can. And speaking of Sister Honora Nolte, we're thrilled that she's here with us today. She's been a Dominican sister for 65 years. And currently she is retired from her exciting life as an educator, administrator, and pastoral minister, mostly in the great diocese of Brooklyn, also my hometown, but also nationally and internationally. She attributes her passion for works of justice to her mother's example. Her mom, Katie, with her small group of women, weekly prayed the rosary through the United Nations General Assembly meetings on Mondays. So thank you so much for joining us, sister. And we're going to say the opening prayer. I just want to repeat for a couple of people that may have just signed on that the Q&A box will be open for the whole webinar. So if you have any questions for Sister Honora, any technical difficulties, please feel free to type anything into that Q&A box and I'll help you out as best I can. Thanks so much. So our opening prayer. God of grace, creator of a world of plenty, the heavens declare your glory and the earth your generosity. In love, you created us, and in your likeness, you made us to be partners in creation. In greed, we have turned away and have marred your image in us to fashion a fragmented world.
Renew in us your vision of wholeness, that the rich may restore wealth to the poor, and the poor share blessings with the rich. Revive in us a passion for justice, that the tyranny of profit be quelled, and whispers of freedom find voice. Refresh in us our sense of calling, that we may follow Christ in serving others and live simply with those who simply live. Amen.
Amen. Sister Honora, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. I just want to mention for the 3 or 4 people that just signed on, please feel free to type anything in the Q&A box, any questions for Sister or any technical difficulties, and I'll be happy to help you as best I can. Sister Honora, thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. Well, the theme for Earth Day this year is Invest in Our Planet. And I don't know about you, but when I think of investing, I think of more resources, endowment funds, the stock market, more hirees. But investing in our planet, as seen by those who developed it for this year's Earth Day, really takes a very different approach. It begins with what your worldview is and how it is that you see our world. It seems that many people are really living inside a world of scarcity, a feeling that there's not enough God, not enough healthcare, not enough food, not enough rest and relaxation to go around, not enough mercy, not enough forgiveness. You want to check yourself on what's your world vision. Think about this. Do you see the glass half empty or half full? When you got up this morning and put your feet on the floor and stood up, did you say, oh my God, I don't want to get out of bed, I'm tired, I need more sleep? Or did you say, another day, can't wait to see what lies ahead? Very simple, but many of us live out of the half empty glass and I need more sleep, and there's not enough of everything to go around. Your worldview is extremely, extremely important. The The truth of the matter is, there is enough in this world for everyone, for everything. There is enough for what we need, but not for what we want. Laura? Our culture helps this worldview of scarcity that many seem to be living out of. We do live in a world of consumerism where we think all progress is good, not even knowing what the ramifications will be down the line. Greed has brought us to the state that we are in. It has brought us to a crisis. Yes, a climate crisis, but a crisis of our entire planet. And unfortunately, 90% of the harm to our planet is the result of human activity. Laura? Where we're at today is, we know that plastic, we're told that by 2050, there will be more plastic in our waters than fish. That really saddens me. If you look at biodiversity, and you know, diversity is one of the principles of the universe. Diversity, subjectivity, and communion are the three principles of the universe. And diversity, especially biodiversity, we are killing off thousands of living animals, insects each day. Our technology, we think, is going to be the answer. And technology is wonderful. We wouldn't be talking like this if it wasn't for technology. It's got many, many wonderful aspects. But it needs to be used with care. And technology is not going to solve our problem. Someone said, if you try to solve your problem with the same thing that got you there, that's called insanity. I think it was Einstein, but I'm not sure. The other thing that has happened, which is the state that we're in, is that we are overdeveloping. Every empty lot is being built on. Open spaces are rare and so valued when we have them. So we're in a crisis, and it could cause us to be down, to feel, oh my God, there's no hope. And how can I do anything about that, Laura? But the truth is, it's not all bad news. There is a lot of good news out there. In 2015, Pope Francis issued his encyclical Laudato Si on care of our common home. Elizabeth Johnson, who was probably one of the most important theologians of our century, says that Laudato Si may very well be the most important encyclical that has ever been written. And you will see why in a moment. But let me ask you this. Have you heard about Laudato Si in your parish? If you have, just put it into the chat room, and maybe your parish or where you're from. The truth of the matter is, Laudato Si has not really been embraced as it should be by the Catholic Church. And this is my take, and Elizabeth Johnson's, on why that is. You know, when we grew up, we thought it was the pebble, the poodle, the person, the principalities, and then God. It was a hierarchy of creation. And when we interpreted Genesis, we interpreted it incorrectly, translating, instead of stewardship, we use the word dominate. Very different. very different. So in Laudato Si, Pope Francis is inviting us all to an integral ecology. I think it's real interesting, for many years, religion was what inspired and encouraged and moved us forward. And now it seems that science is, and religion is dragging behind. In Laudato Si, Pope Francis asks us to cultivate, to nurture, to grow into a new image of God. Not the pebble, the poodle, the person, the principality, God. No, but a circle of life where we are all connected, where we are all part of all of creation. I think COVID taught us that in a very unique way. What happened in China impacted us big time. By polluting our streams, rivers, and waters, the people in Europe will be impacted. So Pope Francis is calling us to see not the human person as the epitome of creation, but as one in the circle of creation. And God as being a part of that, God being in the midst of that, not being separate, up there, out there. So Pope Francis is really calling us to a radical conversion in Laudato Si. And what he's saying in not so many words is that much of what we grew up with and what we were educated in and what we were taught is no longer true. We've developed in so many other areas, but we're so hesitant. Change is something that is extremely difficult in the area of religion, spirituality. So is it any wonder that our churches haven't embraced? Think of the homilies you heard in the past couple of weeks. Do they speak of a God who is in our midst? Do they speak of each of us and what's going in our world as connected and impacting each of us? Do they speak of our being responsible for our common home and not someone who can use it, abuse it, whatever? Now, if you haven't read the encyclical, Laura, I would suggest that you do. The encyclical is very easy. You can download it for free from the internet, but one of the better things is Creation at the Crossroads takes Laudato Si and it divides it into sessions for small groups to read it and discuss it and connect it to their faith. It's published by Renew and it's on sale right now, and I'll talk more about that later. So we need to change our images of God and of ourselves, and that's not an easy task. Laura, there's more good news though. In 2020, which was 5 years after Laudato Si came out, Pope Francis did something that has never been done before. He collaborated the UN, the Vatican, and all peoples of goodwill throughout the world. And he asked us to look at Laudato Si and to, with him, create a 7-year plan to turn our climate crises around, to reduce our carbon, our nitrogen in our atmosphere. The goals of that Laudato Si action platform are many. They are ecological education. They are listening to the earth and responding to her needs, listening to the poor and seeing that as the same as the needs of the earth, changing our financial systems, participating in government, ecological spirituality. There are 7 goals. And he asked us, all people of goodwill. He spoke to families, educational institutions like our universities, our economy, religious orders, parishes and dioceses, hospitals and healthcare centers, and any other organizations and groups that care for our common home. He spoke to each of those sectors and he said, I am asking you to come together, create a 7-year plan that responds to the goals of Laudato Si and turn this crisis around. And to religious communities, he said, I am asking you specifically to lead the charge, to use your influence, your places of influence, to push Laudato Si everywhere you can. So I am the Laudato Si coordinator for my congregation. And we started in 2020. We are in our 2nd year. And each year we evaluate what we did and we take another goal for the next year. And so our educational, our presentations, our activities are all about moving that goal. It's a collaborative effort. And I'm amazed because as the coordinator for Laudato Si, I get to be on a webinar every month with Rome, and then on every month again with the United States. And I'm amazed, pleasantly, delightfully amazed at what I see happening around the world. People are doing amazing, amazing things to turn the climate crises around. It's extremely exciting. And you know, there is something that everyone can do. You don't have to do anything big. Everybody can do something. You know, a simple thing. I refuse to buy vegetables that are wrapped in plastic anymore. Not a big deal. When I go for a walk, I bring a glove and a bag, and I pick up any trash I find along the way. I turn the water off when I'm brushing my teeth. Small things. We can all do something small. And if we have the ability to work with groups, we can do something even bigger. So Laudato Si, 2015, Laudato Si Action Platform came out in 2020, but you can join it at any time. And we'll be giving you those resources. There's a website, they give you everything you need. You don't have to create anything from scratch. They just give you everything. Okay, Laura. So
I just want to share that while you've been discussing all this, we had a question, not a question come in, but a comment that one of the parishes in Bellevue, Washington, has actually engaged a climate meteorologist to come in and do a speech at their parish at the end of May.
How wonderful. How wonderful. One of the other things that that I've discovered in doing this work is that a number of parishes in New Jersey have parish gardens, and they've engaged the religious education program in working in it, as well as their youth groups. And what they produce is amazing, and they feed soup kitchens with all these fresh vegetables. That's a big thing, but parishes can do that. But you know, and another thing parishes can do is where are their endowment portfolios invested? You know, there is responsible investments, and the thinking was if you only put your investments in responsible corporations, you will not get as big a yield as you will from the others. Not true. That is not true. That is fiction, not fact. In this whole area of Laudato Si, it's really difficult to know what is fact and what is fiction. But it's extremely important that we find that out. So, like I said, everybody can do something for Laudato Si. You could spend more time with friends, turn off the television, get off your phones once in a while and have a conversation. Take some time to develop your relationship with God. Spend more time in nature. Do you ever go outside just to go outside? We always go out when we're going somewhere. We go out of the house to get in the car to go somewhere. But do you ever go out just to walk around the neighborhood and look at gardens or go for a walk in a undeveloped area? Volunteering your time to help others. That's listening to the cry of the earth and listening to the cry of the poor. So in other words, what Pope Francis is asking us to do in Laudato Si, which is very connected to Earth Day, is to make a God and creation your priority. One of the things that we're very aware of is that every purchase you make is a moral decision. Where was it made? What were the working conditions where it was made? What was killed or abused to make that product? So that's what I mean by having a world view that is from abundance and not scarcity. It means being more mindful, being more aware of some of these things. The truth is, we have all that we need. And what's seemingly lacking in many situations is the will. And the reason that I think that the will is lacking is that we think it's too big, that my little piece isn't going to make a difference. You know, one of the things that England did was they encouraged everybody to have one meatless meal a week. You know what? It changed the percentage of carbon and nitrate in the atmosphere over England. That's not a hard thing for anybody to do. One meatless meal a week. So there's lots of things you can do. Are there any questions, Laura?
So we have one. Can an individual register their parish on the Laudato Si action platform to push them forward?
Good question. You can, but I don't think it's a wise thing to do. If your parish hasn't done anything, I would have a conversation with the pastor to find out what he knows about it. Maybe he doesn't know much. You might be educating him. And the other thing I would do is I would get a couple of people to be kind of like a little 3 or 4 people to be kind of like a core group with me and to talk about what we could do. You know, maybe your pastor would allow you to start a little vegetable garden. You know, maybe he would allow somebody to come in to speak about Laudato Si. I'm going to show you something else that maybe you might want to do in your parish. Well, I'll tell you about it. I don't have to show it to you yet. One of the things that we did as a part of our first year doing Laudato Si action platform was we created 6 bulletin inserts for a parish. And the insert was a little paragraph, and we told them about season of creation, about Laudato Si, about the Laudato. So it was a little paragraph every week for 6 weeks in the bulletin with some resources underneath that people could go to on their own. And we did that in English and Spanish, and we mailed it to 300 parishes. Not many of them did anything. But I would think if a small group were to say to a pastor, we could at least educate people in the bulletin, and we could invite people who might be interested to join a group and see what we could do to respond to caring for our creation and the Laudato Si plea of Pope Francis. Maybe we could start a small group and discuss the encyclical. You know, there are so many things that you can do. And that, you know, there are so many things that parishes are already doing that maybe we just need to hold them up and show that they are connected to Laudato Si. And people could feel good about themselves and about what they're doing. So I wouldn't do it without the pastors knowing it. I would try to convert him and or ask him if it would be okay for you to sign on, because then you could get all these resources to share with your small group. That would be an okay thing to do. But that's a really good question, because very often our lay people are really ahead of our clergy, and it's very difficult to sit back and not do anything.
Thank you so much for that answer, Sister Honora.
Any other question?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, then why don't you move on a little bit?
Sure.
So, how has our understanding of abundant living from a worldview that God and nature gives us everything we have for our needs, but not necessarily for our greed, for our need, but maybe not for our wants. How has our understanding of that impacted our common home and our relationship with God? Just think about that for a moment. When I was speaking, was there anything that I said that was like really touched you or made you feel uncomfortable or made you say, oh, I want to know about that? Think about that. Was there anything that you thought, oh, I want to know more about that? Because this next question says, how can we take action as individuals in our communities and in our parishes? And maybe we need to first do it with ourselves before we do it with that parishes or our communities. Now, Laura, am I correct? People can't speak, but they can put stuff in the chat
They
box.
can't speak, but they can put it in the Q&A box. They can ask any questions that they have. Can I actually ask a question?
Sure.
So my parish in Brooklyn, how shall I say, doesn't really have space for a vegetable garden. How would we go about enacting some things that could help Laudato Si and its progress?
Well, a vegetable garden isn't the only thing.
How do I convince people to do something, to take even a small action?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think people need to know about it first. I think maybe maybe a speaker or maybe somebody is invited to preach on Sunday about.
That's a good idea.
And then invite anybody who's interested to create if somebody was preaching, they could invite people in the parish if they're interested in forming a small group to forward some action on the part of their parish. They could sign up afterwards, or they could meet you at the back door and sign on, and then you could form a little group and decide what you wanted to do. And I think it needs to begin with education and knowing about it before people have to be enticed, And I think about grandparents and parents, what are we going to pass on to our children?
Mm-hmm.
Folks, the earth is going to survive. It's not a problem. Human life might not. That's the issue. So, yeah, anything that anybody can do to help is helpful. And I think it begins with conversation. I think preaching is one way. Youth groups. We were concerned that the future for our youth, they're very interested in it. In fact, there's a group of young adults who are suing the United States government right now because the United States has passed policies that are impacting climate change, not for good. And so these young adults are suing the United States government, and they've moved up through the court system, and they're fairly high. Just last Monday, the court, there was a case where some group was taking them to court to have them stop this, and the court voted in favor of the young adults.
Wow.
So, a youth group could do something. You could have a cleanup, you know, the parish, you want to talk about a parish,
Mhm.
have a talk on it and have families come and do a clean up the parish grounds and then sit down and talk about what they learned, you know, and have lunch or something. There are so many things that can be done. They don't have to be big.
They don't at all. We had someone just send in another comment that something so small was to literally not buy as much, and especially not order online as much, because there's so much waste in the packaging of what people send.
Well, you know what? One of the things that I was reading last week was that the only thing that Americans like to do more than shop and buy is to throw things away. And we are a throwaway society. You know, a simple thing like reusing plastic bags if they have not contained meat. You know, you don't want to use them if they've had meat in them because you could have bacteria. But reusing plastic bags, yeah, turning off the lights. There's just so many things that you can do.
We had one person write in with a question about LED light bulbs. Are they
Yes.
helpful, and how much of a difference do they make?
They make a big difference. I don't have the statistics, so I'm not going to fudge it. But they make a big difference. Yes, that's a simple thing you can do in your homes. Just change your lights to LED lights, or don't throw out the old ones. When they burn out, replace them with LED lights. You know, if you can walk to the store rather than drive, do. Fossil fuel is a big problem. And the push for electric cars, I don't know where that's going to go, but fossil fuels are a real problem.
We had someone write in with a comment that there is no a way to throw things to. Everyone likes to throw things away. Like if it leaves their line of vision, it doesn't exist anymore, but that's not how it works.
No, we've got islands of garbage floating out in other people's waters because we don't want it in our backyard. So our garbage goes to other places.
Right. And we don't see it now, but one day we will.
We will. Yeah, we will. Okay.
I think those are all the questions that came in for now. So I'm going to progress to
just go to the resources.
To the next slide. These are some sample resources, and we'll be sending all of these and more out in a follow-up email.
Yeah, we'll do that. So the first thing is simple living. One of the things that Laudato Si, one of the goals of Laudato Si is, can we live simpler? You know, and I have to say, I'm talking to myself here. You know, I see a sale on something and I think I have to buy it. Does it matter that I have 5 of them in my closet that I haven't worn? So this is like a check sheet for yourself on terms of living simpler. And, you know, the saying, live simpler so that others can simply live. The truth of the matter is that is the truth of the matter. There are people who can barely eke by. This is the Laudato Si actionplatform.org. If you go to that site, it's got tons of stuff on it. It's got stories. It's got people's plans. It's got videos. It's got everything. Creation at the Crossroads. Told you about that. Takes you right through the encyclical, but it's practical. It talks about all of the things and actions, and it connects it to scripture. So it's a small faith sharing tool for small faith sharing groups. And it's written by Father Ed Cuba of the Diocese of Newark. And Father Ed has spent his whole priestly life trying to think science and religion. Those first two chapters of Genesis really got in his craw as a young priest, and he has worked in this area of ecology and ecological spirituality his whole priestly life. So it was wonderful that he wrote this book for us and used the encyclical. So that's really a good source. And I'm going to say something here. If you by Creation at the Crossroads, because you want to start a small group in your parish. I would be willing on email or Zoom to coach you along in how to do that, to guide you in doing that. So we can put my email up when this is over. This last resource that's here is a sample of what we did for each bulletin for each week. So there's a little there's 2 paragraphs, and oops, there's 3. Oh, you would have to, I know, you would have to edit this, because the 3rd paragraph says, we, the Sisters of St. Dominic of Amityville, along with our associates and young adults, are currently entering a 7-year plan on Laudato Si. So this is specific that people could contact our congregation if they wanted. And there are some resources on the bottom. You can contact those resources anytime you want. The encyclical is there. You could download it. Our action plan is there for our first 2 years, so you can see what it looks like. So those, and then we have some websites and a list of videos. But as Laura said, in the follow-up video, we will send you these resources so that you can have them, and know that you can contact me if I can be of any help.
Yes, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with all of that. If you're interested in Sister Honora's contact information, I just put her email address in the chat box. And Sister Honora, I'm going to ask one more question of you that came in while you were talking.
Sure.
How do we overcome politicizing the concept of climate change? Some people still don't believe that climate change is real.
I know.
So how do you combat that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was speaking with Dan Missler from the Catholic Climate Covenant a number of years ago, and he said, you know, the best thing that ever happened for the environment and climate change was that Al Gore got involved. And the worst thing that ever happened was that Al Gore got involved, because that's when the politicizing of it. But, you know, politics is about people. So we don't have to apologize that this is a political issue. It's not a partisan issue, that's for sure. I guess how I would handle that is I was listening, LCWR, the Leadership Conference of Women Religious, is taking the politicization of all of these issues on as its kind of next direction. And one of the things we were saying is that when somebody presents you with that argument, oh, it's not human induced, it's not caused by humans. Yeah, there's climate change, but it's not caused by humans. You say, you know, that's really interesting that you say that. Like, where do you get that information from? Because science, 90% of the scientists at this stage of the game agree it is human caused. That's fact. That is not fiction. The politicization thing is a problem because we have moved into a post-truth climate in our country. The truth doesn't seem to matter. I mean, look at what's happening with Fox News right now. They're being sued because they published fiction as news, as fact. So it's a difficult thing, and I don't have all the answers. But I know that when somebody presents me with something in opposition, I need to say, well, that's really interesting. Can you tell me more about that and where you learned that? Because if that's true, I would want to know that. But the sources that I read, you know, the UN reports, the Department of Environmental Studies, you know, the CDC, all the scientists that I read and study would disagree with you. So I'm interested in knowing where you get that information from, because I'd like to know if it was true. You're not going to convince them by arguing. That does not work. And most of us have to do this with our families. I heard a story of someone who was home and they were talking about this, and she said to herself, she said, "Oh my God, I've got to take this on. I can't just ignore this." So she said to her nephew, that's really interesting. And those thoughts that you have just expressed never have crossed my mind. How have they crossed your mind? Where did they come from? And he was blown away. Blown away. And it did lead to a deeper conversation where some truth and fact stating was able to be shared. So engagement, Pope Francis talks about encountering. The encounter with other persons is the way to do it, and not to accuse or point fingers or blame or put down, but merely to invite.
No, it's good that they were able to have an open debate about it. I mean,
Yeah.
people's minds aren't going to be open if they feel that they have to be on the defense.
No,
So
not at all.
that was a smart move.
Okay, do we have folks, that's all I have.
So we have in lieu of a closing prayer, we have a short 3.5-minute video, a sort of meditation on the beauty of nature.
And the reason for that is that you have been hearing words. So this is an opportunity to be quiet and to just enjoy the beauty of nature, from which all of our needs can be fulfilled. Amen.
It's a beautiful video, sister. And we had one more comment come in while we were watching that video. It was actually an answer to the question about how to not politicize it. And it kind of plays on Pope Francis's theme of meeting people where they are, is to ask people, have you been impacted by a flood, by higher energy bills? Were you not able to ski if you're a passionate skier because it didn't snow? And to make them think about it in terms of themselves, play on that idea.
Great answer. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's everything that we have for today.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you for joining us, Sister Honora. And as I said before, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with all of the resources, the Simple Living worksheet, as well as the bulletin inserts and a link to view this webinar at your convenience, as well as many other useful websites and articles and videos. Thank you so much all for joining us today. We were very, very glad to have you and very excited to share this with you. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.